Okay, I think we're recording.
So Diane, how are you?
I am well this morning, Katie. How about yourself?
I'm doing well as well. Okay, so to start, do you think you could take me through a quick timeline of your life?
Quick timeline of my life. I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I lived there until I was in high school. And then my father got a promotion in his job that took us to Richmond, Virginia. And I went through high school in Richmond, and I went to Mary Washington College in Fredericksburg, Virginia. It is now the University of Mary Washington. Got my bachelor's in history and historic preservation, and moved to Williamsburg, Virginia right after that to go to grad school at William and Mary, and got my master's in museum education. At the same time, I started working for Colonial Williamsburg as a costumed interpreter.
Oh.
So I interpreted all the buildings, took around school groups. I was at Colonial Williamsburg for 31 years. I met my husband there, Ken, who is the master blacksmith, and we got married in Williamsburg Presbyterian Church. We have two daughters, Juliet and Hannah, who both grew up in this church, and they got to experience the wonderful, not only church activities through Sunday school and things of that nature, but also youth group. They both made lifelong friends at this church, which they're still friends with. I now work for Hospice House and Support Care of Williamsburg, and enjoying being empty nesters with Ken, but of course not wanting to get too far away from wonderful daughters. Have adopted you and Haley through the Second Families program, and have enjoyed having you as part of our family. And I guess my next big thing is looking forward to my daughter Juliet's wedding. She got engaged this year. So that is the Cliff Notes version of the story of Diane.
Do you have an early memory of going to church, thinking maybe like before 10?
I do, and it's the craziest memory because it has to do with coffee. I went to Trinity Presbyterian Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, which at that time was a very large church that had a very diverse congregation as far as different ages of families and people at different points in their life. And in between services, they had a coffee fellowship, much like we do today, but this was one where coffee was served in silver urns, and the cups and saucers were china, and real spoons to stir your coffee. And I have this vivid memory of how delicious that coffee smelled. With I never drank any of it because I was just a kid, but we always went in between Sunday school and church to coffee fellowship. And I remember just thinking, oh, this is so beautiful. I can't wait till I can drink real coffee. I'm always going to drink it in a china cup. That is my memory of church. Nothing about God or Jesus. Coffee.
That's so fun. What is one aspect you think of your family life that you carried into your later life?
Well, I think it's kind of an opposite impact, that my father was kind of a distant father, and he wasn't as involved in our lives growing up. I mean, he was present and he was there, but he was a stern disciplinarian, and at times he could be a bit intimidating. So when I thought about looking to kind of start my adult life, I was kind of looking for the opposite of that. And I found in Ken someone that he's just such a wonderful father, and he's just so giving, and he really was involved in our daughter's lives and still is today, and he takes joy in really getting to know people and respecting people at all ages and what they kind of bring to the table. So kind of a negative, but not really. It was just that was important to me, to have a co-parent that was very present and very involved in the upbringing of our children.
Is there any way that your life has not gone according to plan?
Yes, it has. You probably know what I'm going to say. My position at Colonial Williamsburg was eliminated. And I thought, I did it the right way. I went to college, got a degree and got a graduate degree, and got a job in exactly what I went to school for. And I rose the ladder of success, and I had a very good job at Colonial Williamsburg with a good salary, good pension, good benefits. And I was going to retire from there. But my position got eliminated when the new CEO came, and absolutely hit a low point in my life of what in the world am I going to do now? But I truly believe that all things happen for a reason, and that God had a hand in this. It gave me the opportunity to get involved more in this church at a deeper level. It gave me the opportunity to have a position at a place that deals with caring for people at end of life, which I see as a precious honor as a part of my life now, and helping others. It gave me the ability to have time to volunteer with the ARC of Greater Williamsburg and meet some of the most delightful, compassionate adults that I've ever met. And it gave me the ability to really start giving back to this church. So didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, but hindsight is always 20/20. So I certainly see why this happened, and it was good and is good.
Who is someone that has been a mentor in your life?
Been a mentor in my life. Even though she wasn't a part of my life for as many years as I would have liked for her to have been, I think my grandmother. My grandmother was a very impactful person in my life. She was definitely a Southern belle. She had a sense of humor bordering on wicked. She was the most giving person who gave me unconditional love. I take it back, she's still a mentor in my life, because I think of her always, and she was a devoted and religious woman, but she embodies a lot of the qualities that I hope through her genes I have gained, and through her words and actions I try to copy. And I named my oldest daughter after her.
Can you think of someone younger than you who has taught you something?
Well, obviously, you and Haley have, and one of the most impactful things to me that may make me a little emotional when I talk about it is you present yourself as this young woman full of life, full of love, full of exuberance, and you present yourself as always happy, always giving, always sharing. At Montreat, you dealt with a really difficult subject of when you were feeling not included, you felt uncomfortable, and you really, when you said what you said, and you had, I didn't know I was going to get upset, when you had the bravery to say that in front of all of us, and I'm not going to go into what it is because this is about me, not about you. I was like, wow, I wish I could be like her.
Oh.
I wish I could be that honest and open with my feelings. And boy, did I learn something from you.
Mm.
So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I need a tissue.
Do you have something that you have done that you never want your children to do?
Oh yes. And kind of turning around on that, I didn't tell my parents a lot of stuff that I did, and I never ever want my children to feel like they can't talk to me about anything. And we must have done something right because especially our older daughter came to me with some things in high school that made me want to go stick my fingers in my ears and go la 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 la.
Yeah.
But I never ever want her to feel like she can't tell me and be honest and have me be a part of, you know, just some of the experimenting that we all do to become adults.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the game.
Mm-hmm. And how has faith shaped your life?
Faith, gosh, I am probably the most boring person in the world when it comes to faith. I am a cookie cutter Presbyterian. I was born Presbyterian, raised Presbyterian, insisted that my daughters were raised Presbyterian, and that's a feat, being married to a Catholic. And you know, faith has always been a part of my life, but I think it wasn't until my adult years that I learned to turn to it for a real sense of calming in times of turmoil, which hadn't really been a part of my life until I started having children. I was very lucky, you know, just, hey, go to Sunday school, go to church, go to cover dish suppers, and eat as much as you possibly can, and go to youth mission trips, and blah, 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 and have your girls do the same thing. But as an adult, going through some very difficult times, I've been able to lean on not only the scriptures, but have been lucky enough to have some wonderful ministers in my life that I can turn to and be completely open with, and also hopefully provide a source of strength to them, as they are only human and need that same thing.
Do you have a story of a time when you relied on faith? Or
I think it when I most relied on it, there are other times when I really should have, but when I most relied on it, I think was when I lost my job and just felt absolutely rudderless. And our former director of education ministries told me one time at a death of a staff member here, and I just said, I'm just so angry, and this just isn't fair. Told me, you know, God expects us to be angry. God expects us to yell at him, and that draws us closer. And so I was really angry with God, and I did exactly what he said, and I went through all the emotions in my conversations with God, but really relied on, you know, the scripture and my private words. And again, in hindsight, I'm more so able to look back and say, if it had not been for my faith, I'm not sure I would have gotten through that time as successfully as I did.
And more generally, what is the purpose of a church for you?
Well, that is an answer that I am still defining. Because as a child and as a young adult, the purpose of the church was to have a place for me to go and receive, to feel a sense of faith and a bigger, everything's going to be okay, but it was receive, and as I have been a member of this church, I guess the two things that really come up to me now are a sense of we are meant to embody the work of Jesus as a church congregation, and it's a lot more about giving than receiving, but through the giving you receive things and gifts that you would have never imagined. Purpose of the church, just like any organization, as I have come to realize, has to have strong administrative and organizational structure, and that's a part of giving. That if you don't give into helping the church be healthy, you're not going to get what you need from the church. So I guess partnership is what I have really landed on now, and and outreach, and recognizing that we have to be out in the community, which at times can be a little daunting and confusing right now, as organized religion is on the decline in all of the different denominations and different religious beliefs. That's kind of rambling, so I'll end it with that.
What positions have you held in this church?
I have been a 4-year-old Sunday school teacher. I have been a Stephen minister. We don't have that program anymore. I have been a Sunday school superintendent, which is a big, huge title that means you just walk around and look important. I have been a deacon. I have been an elder. I have been a member of the admin ministry. I have been a back home leader for Monterey. I have been moderator for campus ministry team. I have been a second family to two of the best women in the entire world. I have been a nursery provider, taking care of those sweet little ones during church. That's all I can think of right now.
Oh.
I've been a member of this church for a long time.
And what ministries here do you feel most passionately about?
Oh gosh, hands down, campus ministry.
Why?
I have told you guys before that you push my boundaries and making me think. You help me to not be insular, but to look outward in the community. And you feed my soul because, gosh, you all are amazing, and we're leaving the world in good hands.
So you've been through lots of different pastors and church leaders and music ministers. Can you tell me about some people who have changed your life?
Neil Stevenson, who Stevenson Hall is named for, was the head of staff when I came into this church. And I went through a very difficult time with my first pregnancy, and suffered a lot of anxiety and depression, almost died in giving birth to Juliet. And I remember Neil coming to my house, and the words that he said as I was dealing with all these symptoms of anxiety, and what if, Neil said, I have found that God makes it so that our worries and anxiety about the future are always much worse than the reality. And he turned me on to that scripture from Matthew about, I'm not going to be able to quote it really, but do not be anxious for tomorrow. Today's enough. Do the birds are singing? Do I not give them food and blah blah blah? Why would I not do that for you? So that was very impactful. He also reminded me a lot of the minister I grew up with in Charlotte. This church has been so fortunate in that the staff here has just been incredible and has been, I think, exactly what this church needed at every step of the way. Rachel has been an incredible blessing to me in not only what she's brought to me, but what she's brought to this church. John is just one of the sharpest tools in the shed, and his ability not only in his ministry, but gosh, he's a great leader. He's a great head of staff, and he's a great administrator, and that's exactly what this church needs now. Is just, I think, probably the smartest person I've ever met in my entire life, and I love the fact that he wears flip-flops all throughout the year and shorts. I could go on and on and on, that we've been very blessed at Williamsburg Presbyterian Church in all aspects.
So, there's also been a lot of significant changes, I think, since you've been here. Can you tell me about some good and bad?
Well, of course, the bad was the death of Jim Weaver, our music director, which just sent ripples through all of us. And then not too long after that was the death of Harold McKeithen. And he was someone I should have mentioned, and being one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. But we got through it in a way that both of them would have wanted us to do. The bad was under the leadership of one minister, where there was a lot of turmoil about the youth and how they developed and the folks that were leading them, which was very, very difficult for me because my older daughter was a part of that and so close to the leaders at that point. I think we could have done a better job of having our session and our staff work through that. The difficult was when we made the decision to stay here instead of move and develop a church with better parking. That kind of broke or caused a separation in the church, but the good certainly outweighs that. When one minister left us, I learned about transitional ministry, that we had an interim come that was specifically helping us become the church we wanted to be and attract a head of staff that would do that. And he just put it right on the line and saying, you have 4 services. Nobody is going to come and lead you to where you want to be with that. And he was right. We made some changes that were painful, but that brought us John. I think even though it was hard to totally rebuild this church and lose the old sanctuary where I was married and where I had my children baptized, it has allowed us to be what we are today, so that was a good thing. I don't know. I think the bad was meant for a reason to help us get to where we are today. And I'm very proud of this church and its members and its leadership, both lay and professional.
Let's see. When do you think the church has been most alive?
Well, that, to me, I have to place it on myself. The church is most alive to me when I feel most alive in the church. And that was when my girls were young and I was teaching Sunday school, and, you know, the Christmas pageants and, you know, my Juliet as a little angel, and which she's certainly not. That was not typecasting. The church obviously was most alive for me when my daughters were confirmed and when especially Juliet was so involved in PYF, and she was a youth elder here, and I think now too in my life as an elder about to go off session and being so involved in outreach, that's when the church has been most alive for me. But you know, it's a two-way street. I said I used to come just to receive, but the church becomes alive when you balance that giving and receiving. And so I guess those are times when I've given the most.
And what ways would you like to see this church change?
I'd like to see it embrace diversity more. I'd like to see us become a more light Presbyterian church, what we learned about at Montreat, with being accepted of people no matter who they love, what gender they associate themselves with. And that's hard in a church that for the most part is Caucasian, of a certain age group, and fairly conservative, as many Presbyterians are. That's my biggest hope.
What in the church gives you hope?
I guess just seeing the conviction of the members to do what Jesus calls us to do. You know, we've got some people in this church that are just so dedicated to bettering things for the homeless, for those less fortunate. This church is so great about opening its doors to the ARC and Alcoholics Anonymous, and you know, feeding those that need it, and that's all through the members' strength and passions and the support of the leadership of the church, both the session and the staff. As I've said before, the college students and senior high PYF give me hope. Just in some of the things that they want to do and they want to see, and how the staff that supports them is adamant that they'll be listened to and be a part of the body of the church.
So those were all my questions. Do you have anything else you'd like to add or mention?
I don't think so. Those were excellent questions, Katie. Did you come up with those?
Yeah. I'm gonna stop this.